Hello, welcome back to the Victoria's Wool Podcast. I'm Victoria. I live in the Pacific Northwest on an island in the Puget Sound. I'm a knitwear designer. I've been slowly designing knitwear for 4 years. And I think this is episode 27. I just, before I pushed record, thought, I never checked to see if I remember which one it is accurately or not. I think it's 27. Anyways, it's January 2022. And it's not raining right now, but it's very gray. And January can be a really hard month for everybody, probably in the Northern Hemisphere, but it's hard in the Pacific Northwest. It's still very green, but it's like a sickly green. So every year I try to think, oh, January can be fun. Like winter is like about knitting and like cozy time, and it's not that different from December or November. So like, why is it so hard? But I think I settled on the fact that this time there's just less to look forward to from January to pretty much spring. So like April really for us. The weather is often the same every single day. It's overcast. We might get a little bit of rain, we might get a lot of rain, but it's kind of hard. So I've tried to, especially in the last week, kind of be more structured in my day and do a variety of different things as well, because doing the same thing every day is really hard for me. Just to make it interesting to make it through. I did a puzzle. I'm going to do another puzzle. What else have I been doing? I decided not to watch any TV or movies this week and just try to knit a lot more, because I have a bunch of projects that don't need to be finished on time, but I just haven't been knitting very much for like a long time. I've been knitting here and there in pockets, but I haven't been knitting every single day. And I thought, well, maybe if I just knit every single day, which means I need to take something out, because I do have a full schedule, a full life. So what can I take out that I can fill with knitting time? So one surefire way to knit more is to just like remove all screens, and I can listen to things on my phone, podcasts and audiobooks, and then even those things like Marco Polo chats where people are sending me messages and stuff, I'm watching those, but I'm not getting sucked into a story or binge watching something, because even though you can knit whilst you do those things, I actually don't knit very quickly, and I oftentimes lose interest in what I'm knitting. So I'm definitely in a lull, a knitting lull. I feel like everybody loves knitting more than me, and I knit a lot last year, but I just didn't knit with this crazy frenzy that I did in 2020 or 2019, where I knit, dozens of things, lots of sweaters, and just got through a lot of whips in those years. And then last year was just like a slower year. So I'm just hoping to bring it back into my life so that I can knit every day. I'm picking up a hat that I started when it was snowing here and it was super cold. Right now it's averaging like high 40s, low 50s degree Fahrenheit. So it's not that cold now, but there are still some cold snaps, so I picked up a bulky, I think this is bulky, wait, yeah, I think it goes Aran bulky, super bulky, and then jumbo. So this, and it does say bulky on the label. This is Lamb's Pride from Brown Sheep Company, which I bought this probably, I don't know, something like a decade ago from a local yarn shop in the M115 Oatmeal colorway, which I love Oatmeal. And I'm not following a pattern. What I was trying to do was just knit the features of a basic hat that I really like. It's looking a little big, and I put it on last night and it was okay. So I'm gonna measure the height of a hat that I really like and try not to be perfectionist about it and just like finish it, because there's like lots of different directions I would like to take the crown, or like explore this or try out this, and I just need a really warm hat. So I'm gonna try to get this done this week and knit every day. I also wound up some Malabrigo Rasta, which is a yarn I have in the past purchased a lot of. I worked at a little store here in my town that sold a lot of different things, but they sold yarn. And it's this beautiful saturated mix of browns. Some of them are tan, some of them are venturing on purple, but I know it's not going to pick up on camera as beautifully. Oh. The colorway is called Coronilla. Like I said, it's Malabrigo Rasta. And I have two. And I used to make this cowl. It's similar to my Devra, which is a free pattern on Ravelry and my website. It's free both places. That you just like do like an inch of 1x1 or 2x2 rib, and then you do stockinette, and then you finish off with rib, and it's really made with really big yarn. And the pattern is not written for this. It was written for 3 strands of worsted held together. But you could easily use this in that kind of a big pattern. I made a bunch of, before I wrote that pattern, I made a bunch of cowls like that with this yarn for people. Like, people would pay me to make. There's the only time I've ever been paid to knit anything, because it just took like 2 hours, I think, maybe 2 to 3 hours to knit it. And people would pay the cost of the yarn, and then I would knit them. I probably made maybe 5 or 6 for people, maybe more, I'm not sure. But it was like I think I sold them for like $60 to $80 or something, because I was trying to make like a reasonable price to get paid for the time I put in, but also pay for the materials. Anyways, if anybody else feels the like annoying pressure when you become like a decent, well, actually, it doesn't matter how good you are. People will ask you if they see you knitting something. They'll ask you to make them things all the time. But it was one of the times where like I had an object that I would make for people if they wanted. So anyway, that's kind of my history with this yarn. I made a very oversized cardigan with a bunch of different colors of this that I bled together. I used the pattern, what's that called? I think it's Kinikin by Goodnight Day, which is a pattern designer who makes really great, bulky, oversized knits that are really fun. I should make another one of their patterns. Anyways, this yarn is fun. So what I'm going to do with it is I just sort of was, you know, I have all this yarn behind me, and I was looking at it, and I think I was doing yoga right here in this small space, and I saw it, and I thought it would make a really good Linus shawl. Because one of the things that's hard about using yarn from stash is you probably don't have sweater quantities of every single yarn. You just have 2. But the Linus shawl is really great. I used the basic Linus recipe in Aiaia, which is my pink lace asymmetrical shawl that you've probably seen me wear on here. Anyway, you knit on the bias, and you start on one corner, and you make it bigger slowly, 1 stitch every other row. And then when you're out of yarn or you're done, or the pattern says, you just cast off. And so if you've just got a limited amount and it's still decent enough to make like a shawl that wraps around you, you can do that. So I really like Linus shawls that are skinny, actually, and that are long. So that will require, I think, having like, I don't know if you could even predict that, try to get a different outcome. Maybe I'll try to use a bigger needle size. Anyway, I'm hoping for like a longish thin Linus shawl out of this while it's cold. So I gotta start making it now. But I did wind it up, and I was gonna start that. It's on my list of things to do this week. I had 2 cardigans. I have a black cardigan and a white cardigan that I haven't made any progress on since I recorded last. So I won't show you them again. They're in previous episodes. But I do want to show you this little sweater that I've been working on. And I want to preface it by saying it may never become a pattern. We'll see, because I'm using this as a pattern to grade in a class I'm taking. Julie Robertson of the Tech Editor Hub is teaching something called Grading Bootcamp, and I have a bunch of grading classes that I've bought online and I've not followed through. So this one is live, and so we all needed to have a sweater we were going to grade. So I knit up a baby sweater, or sort of like baby-like sweater. And you know, when you design something, you need to know the construction, you need to know all the moves you're going to make, all the sections that it will be, so that you can then grade for each size that you want to make. So that's when I say I have this design that I'm going to show you, but it may not become a pattern, and if it does, it will be quite a few months because sweaters take a really long time to develop. So it is little drop shoulder with a little bit of cables in the ribbing, because you know how much I love that to have in several of my patterns now. It's still damp. I blocked it last night, and it smells really lanolly because this is Peace Fleece, which is a wool on the more rustic side. It's still pretty soft, I think. It's in the Morning Doves colorway, which is a pinky brown with yellows and oranges just mixed in. Peace Fleece is such a fun yarn because the colors are just so... it's not a tweed because there's not like little bits coming off of it, which is I think what tweed really is. But it's definitely heathered in like multi bits of color. So the ribbing is a 2x2 rib with a 2/2 cable on the bottom. And this took me to figure out just to figure out the ribbing cable. I had to rip out many, many times, but I really like it. I'm really happy with it. It does look like the back is a little bit longer than the front, which you know it kind of is because I kept adding short rows in, because even though it's for a baby, I was trying to mimic the way I would design it for an adult, because I'm not making baby sweaters, baby patterns. I'm making an adult pattern, but I didn't have time to knit an adult size, so I just knit a baby size. But it does have like a slightly dipped back because I did add short rows like every once in a while the whole length of the back, which I think is a really great way to make up for the fact that the shoulders are really broad. They're broader than the concaveness of our upper chest, and so if you put an equal front and back pieced sweater, and people generally slouch also, is that you will have the back of the sweater come up a little bit because your back shoulder width is taking up a lot of real estate on your sweater, and it's dipping the sweater down. And it doesn't matter how big your bust is or how rounded your shoulders are, it can still do it. So lots of people add short rows at the back neck, and I did a sweater I think last year that had short rows, and the one I'm doing now, the white cardigan I'm doing now, has you add short rows the whole way down, like every once in a while, or not every once in a while. It's like very precise points you added in. So I did that, and that's why it sort of dips down, which I'm happy about. I'm very obsessive about the fact that I want my sweater to like either be longer in the back or be exactly the same. Because if it's longer in the back, it covers up the back gap between your pants and your sweater and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, I finished this up for my class, and now I'm going to grade it for 9 sizes, I think. At least that's the intention. I didn't do ribbing on the sleeves, although in the adult version I would. That was sort of the goal, is to have cable ribbing both on the hem of the body and on the sleeves, cuffs. But these sleeves are so tiny that it would not have been an accurate representation of what it would be like if I gave you a 3-inch cuff on the sleeve. So, and then there's not going to be any cables on the collar because it's not going to be long enough to establish the twists. Yeah, so I'm really happy with it. I kind of was like totally loathing it until I finished it yesterday when I worked through some of the issues and actually got something that looks good, and then now I love it. So maybe it will become a pattern. I don't know. I could also make baby patterns. I just can only do so much at once, so I will consider it, but not right now. Those are the things I'm working on. I just have a couple patterns I wanted to talk about. One of which is what I'm wearing. This is my sister's braids. This is one of my, I think this is my first shawl I ever did. Maybe. Came out a few years ago. It's knit in the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Squish Worsted, I think is what it was called. It's a superwash yarn. In, what is this? Heartbreak Hotel, I think is the name of the colorway. It's got vertical cables on both sides of the shawl, and then the center has this big fancy cable. And it's top down triangle with tassels on the bottom on all the points. And this yarn and pattern were designed specifically for yarn that's just lightly speckled like this. Maybe it's a medium speckle. I guess that depends. But because speckled yarns are hard to find patterns for sometimes, because you're either going to do just stock a net so you really get to see the colors, or you're going to do, or you could put it in something that's got a stitch pattern and you can't really see it. So speckled yarns are a little tricky. So I thought, well, I'll design something that had some subtlety to it, but you can still really see the cable. Yeah. And then there's ribbing on the bottom. I think this is probably my most successful design, one I've sold the most copies of. And I like to just tie it. And then I wanted to talk about Meet Cute, because I made a Meet Cute cowl, but that was the second pattern in the series. The first one is this big blanket shawl that I designed. I think this came out beginning of 2020, I think. So it's a couple years old now. If you've got bulky yarn, or you have yarn you can hold multiple strands together with, it's just really fun. It's too big to fit in the frame. I used 3 colors. I used brioche, basic 2-color brioche, to transition between the sections of seed stitch. Look at that seed. Seed stitch is so textural. I love it. Oh, so much. I shouldn't use it more often because I forget how much I love it. 3 colors, 2 color transitions, top down triangle. It's big enough to fit across my whole back and be a cozy blanket. I have worn it meditating a lot when you sit and you need something to cover your lap or your shoulders. It actually has a special place with my yoga mat for that reason. I did put tassels on the end. You don't have to because they're ginormous, but I love tassels, so I know some of my testers didn't put them on, some did. So you could wear it like a shawl. It's just so big. And then I'm like, I don't know about that. Practicality of that. Sort of kind of look like a lion's mane when you wrap it around yourself like this. But it's fun. And it's so squishy. Oh, so squishy. So, it's winter time. It's the perfect season to knit big, bulky, warm, toasty knits like this. So, yeah. Both the My Sister's Braids and Meet Cute are available on my website and Ravelry. And yeah, I hope you're having a good first month of the year. My my goals that I started at the end of December, right before Christmas, I did a bunch of goal planning for this year and also habit tracking stuff. Those are all going really well. I'm doing a pretty good job of exercising, doing yoga, and the darkness has made it a little bit harder to get up and start work by 8 a.m., but I'm confident that I'll be able to get it back. I just have to work a little later in the morning and then eat lunch a little later if I don't start at 8 a.m. So anyways, I'm positive about those things. Got some great books and great resources. I love reading books about habits, books about organization, books about workflow. I try not to like overwhelm myself with inspiration because I can only adapt new ideas so many a month, or new concepts. But I do really love being inspired by what other people do. And I think I said last time that I started highlighting in my planner the things that I've done instead of checking them off. And I had like 5 different color highlighters and stuff. That's actually been really fun. So I'm happy that that's working out. The systems that people use are only successful if they work for that person. So I always encourage people who ask me about that kind of stuff, like, it's a lot of experimentation to find out what works for you, what motivates you, and what's fun. So if filling in bubble sheets does not motivate you and for very long, then don't use them. Don't keep trying to force a system on yourself that you're really not into. And I also heard some organizational podcasters say recently that the managing of tasks and super organization only matters when you're not obsessed with something, because when you're obsessed with something, you don't have to try, it just happens. So I've been thinking about that. There are days where I just do all the things I need to do. I don't have to motivate myself. I don't need a list. I just step up and do them naturally and write the things that I did retroactively on my list and I cross them off. But there are days where I really have to work hard to get things done. And I'm just it's like an aspect of my life that's challenging, and I've made it really fun for myself. So I end up talking about it with people a lot and asking what planners do you use and what works for you and what's your personality type, and because those are just really interesting things. But yeah, that's it. I hope that January is going well for you and you're knitting and feeling good about your projects. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.